Baruch Hashem, what an awesome crowd. Chazak u'baruch to all the tzaddikim that work every week to make this happen. I'm very fortunate to see it actually happening from the very beginning, from its early toddler stages, and it's just growing and growing. So big Chazak u'baruch. One thing just to mention is those who have been coming here for a long time, on the WhatsApp group, where you guys, if you pay attention, there's a Zelk and Venmo. Every week, obviously there's a lot of costs involved in this. So if you had a good week, and you have the ability to give, that would really help this, continue doing this regularly. I'm such a fan of this. I myself also participate, because I'm such a fan of what these guys are doing here, because it's so tremendous. It really changes, I think, South Florida, especially the youth here, and it's just, it brings so much to everybody. So please, if you can, I think everybody that runs this will be very grateful. Okay, so I want to talk to you today about something that in this week's parasha, this is a very critical parasha this week, and I'm just going to take this out. It's not the most comfortable. Okay, and there's so many things going on this week's parasha. This is the parasha where Avraham solidifies his status, where he passes the most difficult of all tests that he had. This is the Achidat Yitzhak, but I'm not going to talk about that today. There is almost like a family drama, feud episode in this week's parasha that I want to focus on, and I think is very much related to everybody. So, Avraham, as you know, he's married to Sarah, and after many years, unfortunately, Sarah was barren, and she did not have any kids. So, Sarah, being that she is truly a selfless wife and a mother, she says, look, I can't have any children. Why don't you take Hagar, my maidservant, and she will be like your wife. Abraham says, your wish is my command. I'll do it. Not a problem. Now, it wasn't the best idea. It wasn't the best idea because someone by the name of Ishmael came out of the union between Abraham and Sarah's maidservant. Her name is Hagar. The Gemara says something quite frightening. One of the things Hashem regrets is making Ishmael. This is a Gemara. It's unbelievable Gemara. Those who know. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to elaborate. But there's a lot to learn from this. A ton. Because even so, at the end, Ishmael did tshuva at the end of his life. So, I want to focus on a very interesting incident that happened in this week's parasha. Sarah, after she gave birth to Yitzchak, now she's raising two boys at home. She has, even though Ishmael is not her boy, but still, he's under her wing, and she's taking responsibility. But then she sees that Ishmael and Yitzhak cannot coexist. They cannot live together under the same roof. Why? So the Torah tells us, because she sees that Ishmael is playing games. He's mitzahek. His behavior is unacceptable. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but I'll just tell you, he began acting in a way, he was around maybe 14, 15, 16 at the time, where he engaged in probably the three worst sins that one can do. Idol worship, murder, and adultery. So she says to Abraham, I want to read you the word. She says the following, ותאמר לאברהם, גרש את האמה הזאת ואת בנה, כי לא יירש בן האמה הזאת עם בני עם יצחק. She tells Abraham, this maidservant that is your wife now, you gotta kick her out. Even though it was my idea, you gotta get her out of here and her son. If you think you had family drama, you don't know what you're talking about. Because this, Abraham has has Sarah as his wife, then he has another wife, then he has a son from Sarah, and a son from Hagar. And after all of it, Sarah doesn't want to kick out his son. So what does Hashem tell him? You have to listen to he didn't say wife, he said Sarah. Same concept. Gotta be careful here. So he ends up listening, and he actually kicks out Ishmael, his son, and it's hard for him. It's very hard for him. It's not something to be taken lightly, because anytime someone has a son or a child, to kick him out of the house is very difficult. But God tells him directly, you need to listen to Sarah. What she sees, you don't see. What she understands, you don't understand. So listen to her. Avraham listens. The next morning, he gives Hagar water, some food, and they start walking. Now Ishmael is relatively young, he's a teenager. And in the desert, it becomes hot and he's not feeling so well. And he becomes sick. And he drinks up all the water. And there's no more water left. And as a result, since there's no more water left, he's about to die. And Hagar sees that her son is about to die. So, I want to tell you, let me just read you these couple of verses because they're very important. The pasuk says, "Vaychelu hamayim min hachemat v'tashlech et hayeled tahat echad hasichim." The water that she had, he finished it, and then what did she do? She took Hagar took Ishmael as he's dying, and she's throwing him into the bushes. I know what you're thinking. Which mother takes a dying son and throws her son into the bushes? That's out of this world. A mother doesn't behave this way. You know what's also very interesting? If you go through that whole episode, not once in the dynamic of the relationship between Hagar and her son Ishmael does the Torah ever identify that this is her son. It always says Hanar, which means the lad, or it always says Hayeled, which is the boy. But it never says it's her son, which is very, very compelling. You would think at the very least that the Torah would give you that form of identification. This is the mother and the son. We see it regularly across the whole Psukim, all the Torah, but it doesn't tell us that. Which is very compelling. I want to ask something. The word tashlech means lashlich, it means to throw something. When do we typically throw something? When you want to get rid of it, that's one answer.
You're mad? You throw bread on Shabbat table?
I mean, you some have that custom to throw bread on Shabbat table. I've seen that before. What? When you're mad, that's true too.
When you're not comfortable with the situation and you want to make a change in your life.
Okay, there's some truth to that as well.
You want to get rid of it.
When you want to get, who said that? When you get rid of it. Typically, what did you say? Oh, I never heard that perspective before. He said, that's nice. He actually said, when you need room for something else. You know, so this is good for like relationships. One relationship doesn't work, you leave room for the next one to come. I like that, that's good. I like how this guy thinks.
I want to get the right answer.
When something doesn't work. All these are very good answers. And there's someone, I think we're going to converge all these answers into one.
When you want to encourage a child to grow, to experience and grow through their own experiences. Yeah,
and that's very true. Independence is very important in this reality, for sure, when it comes to that. And you see, Sarah did challenge her son and Avraham as well. In this case, something very practical, very just simple and practical. When we throw something out, we don't need it anymore. I used it. It's all used up. I don't need it. It sounds bad, but almost like a disposable cup. I finished it. I used it. I have more use for it. That's typically when we throw something out. I don't need it anymore. Now, I want to tell you, this is the part where it gets really interesting. When she throws him to the bushes, the Torah tells us that she raised her voice. It says, "Vatisai et kola, vativk," and she cried. She burst out in tears. So she has her son in her possession. He's dying. She's throwing him into the bush, and then she's crying. And you know what the next pasuk says? The next pasuk says the following: "Vayishma Elohim et kol hana'ar." So she's crying, and who does God hear? The boy. Meaning God doesn't even address her pain. God doesn't even address the fact that she's crying. Isn't that fascinating? You would think that a mother is crying because her son is dying. God totally ignores her. And it's even more fascinating because we have a rule. Anytime someone cries to Hashem, the gates of tears are never locked. But in this case, nothing. So I want to tell you, this is very important. Ishmael is a very complicated character. And I told you at the end he did tshuva in his life. But you know why God heard his prayer and ignored his mother's prayer? I'll tell you. The Torah is telling us an unbelievable insight here. God heard his prayer because Ishmael was an abused kid. His mother abused him. His mother took advantage of him. You know how I know this? It's very simple. You see, when Ishmael is about to die, God does a miracle for him. What miracle does he do for him? He needs to drink. He needs to have something before he does it. God creates a miracle and brings up a well. In Shamayim, there's a very mystical and esoteric conversation between Hashem and the angels. That's what Rashi brings down. It's a very, very interesting conversation. The angels complain to Hashem. They say, Hashem, we don't understand. You are creating a well for Ishmael when you know Ishmael's descendants are going to kill your children? This is what the angels are saying to Hashem. How relevant is it for today's time? And you know what Hashem says to the angels? He asks them a question. He says, Mahu, what is Ishmael right now? Tzaddik? Or Rasha? The angels saying he's a tzaddik, he's righteous. Wait a second. What's the reason Sarah wanted to kick out Ishmael is because he engaged in the 3 cardinal sins. So how can the angels call him righteous? He's wicked. You know why the angels called him righteous? Rashi says an unbelievable insight. Ba'asher Usham, I judge Ishmael based on his actions today, not based on his future actions. So even though I know what may come out of his descendants, may be evil, but I measure him today. How is he right now? Not how is he going to be in the future. Which means the following. What did Ishmael want from Hashem? He wanted, it's true that life was a thing, but you know what he wanted? He wanted a real, genuine relationship with Hashem. That's all he wanted. He cried out to Hashem, and Hashem heard him. Who also cried to Hashem, and she was totally ignored? Hagar. You know what's very interesting? If I go back to last week's parasha, how did Hagar get to this place to begin with, where she gets kicked out? Because if you think about it, they could have kicked out the son. Why did Hagar have to go also? He's Hamor. He could have been on his own. But the mother was also kicked out. You know why? In last week's parasha, when Sarah could no longer when she could not have a kid, she said, you know, Avram, I want you to take my maidservant and she'll be your wife. Now you have to understand, Sarah and Avram were extremely famous at that time. Very prominent people. They were able to convert hundreds, if not thousands, Avraham converted men and Sarah converted the women. So when Sarah brought her into her inner sanctuary, she said, you know what? I'm going to have a child through you. Almost like a surrogate. The child's going to come through you, and I'm going to raise him. She just elevated her from a maidservant to a wife. She upgraded her. She validated who she is. She made her feel good with who she is. And what happened after she conceived? She conceived with Abraham. Vatakel, this is the verse, I want to read it to you because it's unbelievable. Vatakel gvirta be'aineha. Now that she conceived, she said, wait a second. I conceived with Abraham. And what's fascinating is that Sarah's with him for so many years. I conceived from the first time. She's in for 10 years. It's nearly a miracle to conceive after the first time. She's with him for tens and tens of years and she didn't conceive. God did a miracle for me. He couldn't do a miracle for her. So you know what Rashi writes? He says, this is the words of Rashi. She says, En sitra ki gluya, which means who Sarah pretends to be on the inside is not who she is on the outside. In other words, Chas v'shalom, she's saying Sarah is fake. That's what she actually thought, that Sarah is fake. The very thing that validated who she is, which now I have a son, now I'm upgraded, now I'm the main wife, when she really wasn't, that whole reality blew up in her face. She thought, I'm better than you. What happened when Ishmael was misbehaving? Because Ishmael is what validated her. He's what upgraded her. He made her feel good. What happened when Ishmael misbehaved? Avraham told her, you gotta go. The very thing she thought validated her is the very thing that got her kicked her out. It's the very thing that brought her actually down. You know what that means? She used her son to validate her actual status. She abused him. You know why God forgave Ishmael? Because he understood Ishmael was abused and being taken advantage of. See, this is what means that God measures the person right then and there, not what he might do in the future. But there's so much more to this story. When Hagar was crying to Hashem and he didn't listen to her, I said, what kind of, if someone cries, how is Hashem not listening to their prayer? There's a rabbi, his name is Rabbi Gil Grafi, he writes something fascinating in this episode. He says, when someone is weeping, when they're crying, if that pain comes from being egotistical, if that pain comes from you're only seeing yourself, and you don't do anything about it to try to improve your situation, like in Hagar's case, she's crying because she can't see her son dying. How do you throw your son onto the bushes? Even if he's about to die. There could be thorns that can prick his skin. Soothe him. Be with him. A mother's job, a powerful mother's job is, no matter the intensity of the emotions that she feels, she will always put the child first. It's her role. She will literally put her pain to the side. Men, we're not very good at doing that. But the women, next level. Next level. At the very least, you thought she would do that. But she didn't. She just threw him. Sarah is not by coincidence that she's our first mother. She raised Yitzhak. And you see in this whole interaction, God says, I'm not going to answer anybody's prayers. Even if they're crying, even if the pain they feel, if it comes from an egotistical place and there's no action combined to it. She literally threw her son because she couldn't see him and she just stood by, did nothing. She could have soothed him, she could have held him, she could have done something. Those type of tefillot do not go up to the throne of glory. They don't get to the kisei hakavod. Which means anytime we do shed a tear for something and we do pray for something, it has to be coupled with some action. We have to do something with it. We have to show that we want something to change, but it needs to be manifested through actual action in and of itself. when I see the story, and I see how Hagar abused Ishmael and the difficulty that he had to go through, which kid does all these three things at age 15? Those who do have kids, or even if you don't have kids, because you're young, you will have kids, and everybody wants to be validated. Anybody wants to feel like being empowered, especially by their parents. My rabbi says, whether you're 15 or 50 or 70, you always want your parents' approval. You always want them to validate who you are. It's such an important thing, and it's not just with parents, it's with all types of relationships. There's an unbelievable story that I saw it. It's on a video, and I got so much chizuk from the story. There's a rabbi, I think he's becoming very popular on social media. Maybe some of you have heard of him. He's known by the Yenuka. He's a very young rabbi, 37, 38 years old. He knows all the Torah by heart. It's phenomenal, but you see his character traits. Someone came to him, and he shakes his hand, and he tells him, Rabbi, if I would have met you 16, 17 years ago, maybe I wouldn't have deviated from the path of religion. Maybe I would have stayed religious. And he tells him, my whole life I grew up in yeshivot. I was learning Gemara all day. That was the only thing I was learning. And I heard the rabbi say recently, anything you learn, you're connected to Hashem. Anything. So he tells him, Ata tzaddik, the rabbi tells him, you're righteous. So he tells him, Lo, ani lo tzaddik. No, I'm not righteous. He tells him, yes, you are a tzaddik. So then he tells him, why am I a tzaddik? He says, we just finished praying nets. It's the earliest tefillah you can pray. And everybody, a lot of people are sleeping, and you're up, and you finish praying. You're a tzaddik, and God's happy with you. And as he's holding his hands, he sees tattoos all over his arm, over here, tattoos. So the guy tells him, even with my tattoos I'm righteous. You know how he answered him? He tells him, Ata sefer Torah and kishutim. You're the Torah scrolls with decorations. This is what it means to validate somebody. He didn't feel very good about it. He was a yeshiva student. He had his moments, but he elevated him. He made him feel good with who he is. It's an unbelievable thing. And I want to tell you something on this. One of the greatest feelings I think people oftentimes have is that they feel like they're being understood, that someone understands me. Because we're very complex people, especially now, I think more than ever. I think many things messes with our minds. Maimonides writes that a person's biggest yetzer hara is his imagination. Because that's where it takes us. You allow, my wife showed me a video, and I don't know which rabbi it was, but he said, if a man is running late, he needs to notify the wife. He needs to let her know, I'm running late. I never do that, by the way. But he says, you have to let her know. Why? Because her mind runs. It runs. She doesn't know what's going, maybe things happen, and it can really emotionally, it can do damage. So you have to let her know. I wasn't aware of it. So I'm taking it upon myself to do that. But, I don't know how good I'm doing it, but I'll try. However, by the men, it's not so much as the same thing, because by men, it's the situation is, we don't pay attention, we're occupied, we have things going on, etc., whatever it is, so it's a little different. But as women, you gotta know, because the mind, the Yetzirah, takes hold of the mind, of all the things, of all these anxieties, all these vulnerabilities, all these difficulties that we have. The Yetzirah comes and attacks those weaknesses more than ever. Hashem understands that. Just like Hashem understood Ishmael, Hashem understands us. Hashem understands our difficulties. Hashem understands our struggles. But the only thing Hashem desires is that we should desire a real relationship with Him. You know when we read the story of Ishmael and being kicked out of the house? We read this on Rosh Hashanah. It's the first story we read. The second day of Rosh Hashanah, we read Akedat Yitzchak. So both stories are in this week's parasha, we read on Rosh Hashanah. You know, Yosef HaTzadik, when he left prison, that was in Parashat Miketz, that was in Rosh Hashanah. We don't read that story, we read these two stories. But you know why we read this story? It's a story where Hashem is telling us, yes, this is Judgment Day. But you know what I want? I just want a relationship with you. That's all I want. Once we desire a real, genuine relationship, everything else will work itself out. Let me tell you why. People think tshuva is, I put on tefillin, I keep Shabbat. Yeah, these are things where they're part of the tshuva process. But you know what's real tshuva? That I desire to have a real relationship with Hashem. Once we achieve that, everything works out. Shabbat will come, tefillin will come, Nevot Shabbat will come, everything will come with it. It's not overnight. God doesn't expect us to fix everything right then and there. Like I said, God understands us. That doesn't mean that we don't have a responsibility to improve ourselves, but God very much understands us. And this story always hits home. In a sense where if you just read it and you go through it, now you understand why Hagar and Ishmael, you don't see the dynamics of mother and son. Because the mother doesn't abuse her child in that way. That's not the motherly role. I'm not saying she didn't love him. For sure she had love for him. But she used him to validate her presence, her status. Anytime someone is being used or abused, it's one of the worst feelings. And the damage that he carries can have tremendous amount of ramifications. God heard his tefillah and not her tefillah. Whenever we have an opportunity to do mitzvot, to connect to Hashem, they don't always present themselves, but we will have always opportunities. The way we can show Hashem that I want to be in a relationship with you is to have an opportunity to do a mitzvah, do it, don't delay. One of the reasons Hashem, there's a Hasidic rabbi, he says, you know how Avraham Avinu became Avraham Avinu? Because every time Hashem told him to do something, he did it without delay. That's it. There was not once a situation where Avraham delayed. Just read it to God tells him, Lech Lecha, he went. He never told him when to go. He didn't say go tomorrow. He told him, take your son and bring him from an offer. He never told him when to do it. He did it the next morning. He told him, kick Ishmael out, the next morning, out. Every single thing that Avraham did was right then and there. What made Avraham Avinu is that he never delayed. That's what made him Avraham Avinu. There's a rabbi, his name is Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. He writes, he has a sefer called Mesilat Yesharim. It's a very famous book, highly recommended. And in this book, he talks about the trait of zerizut. Zerizut, the fancy term in English is alacrity, being quick to doing things. That's the famous term for it. And he says that a lot of times, there's two things that prevent a person from acquiring this trait. He says the first thing that prevents a person from acquiring this trait is desiring physical comfort and hating hard work. These two things, when a person indulges in physical comfort and he hates hard work, will prevent a person from being quick to getting things done. That's the first thing, he says. So let me give you an example. We have an opportunity to maybe light the Menorot Shabbat, we delay a few minutes, another 5, another 10. Before you know it's already Shabbat, you can't light the candles anymore. Or you wake up in the morning and the tefillin is waiting there on your desk. And you're like, okay, 5 minutes, I'm not tefillin. 10 minutes. Oh, now you gotta go, you have to work, you come back. Now it's already 12, now it's 3, 4. Before you know it, you missed the opportunity to put on tefillin. There's so many good things that anytime you want to do something good, The evil inclination is there to stop you. I'll tell you a quick story about David HaMelech. David HaMelech told Benayahu, those who don't know, Benayahu was the chief justice of the Jewish Supreme Court during that time. So David HaMelech tells him, this is towards the end of David HaMelech's life, I want you to take my son Shlomo, and I want you to bring him down to Gihon. Gihon is a location where there's a spring. And he tells him, bring with you Natan Navi, Nathan the prophet, and the high priest, the Tzadok, the high priest. And I want you to anoint there Shlomo to become king. Coronate him there. So says Benayahu, whatever you tell me, I'll do it just like Hashem is telling me, and I'll get it done right away. So rabbis ask, David was told, your son Shlomo will be king. What's the hurry? What's the problem? It'll happen. What'll happen? It'll happen. So the rabbis explain the following. Even when something good is coming to you, if you take your time, many things can come in the middle and stop it. Many things. If I can just touch on this as well, how many people maybe are trying for a long time to find a spouse or a soulmate, and they're just so tired of the dating game, going on another date and another person. I hear stories, and it's very difficult. I feel the pain of those people who really, you have to put on another show, and another show, and another show, so on and so forth, and it's tiring. It is, and it's hard. And there's no perfect solution for it, other than working on yourself and praying to God. But anytime you have an opportunity, don't delay it. You got an opportunity to meet somebody and it makes sense, even if you're tired, go. You don't know if that's going to be your next spouse. As tiring as it is. Because there's been stories where people ended up going where they didn't want to go, and they found your spouse. So you have an opportunity, you jump on it. Do I need to elaborate on business opportunities? I think you guys know. Any business opportunity, anything you have waiting, if someone wants to buy a real estate property, if someone who wants to invest in. Yesterday, I saw Bitcoin at 98,000. I said, maybe it's a good opportunity. I was thinking about it. But then I looked today, and that's it. I missed the opportunity. The Ramchal writes, even if you have something, you think about it. You just think. Or a mitzvah presents itself. Anything that presents itself, you do it. And you don't just do it, you finish it through. Because even though it's hard to start something, it's even harder to finish it. Do you know who gets credit? The person who finishes the mitzvah. You know where I know this from? I'll tell you two instances. The first, Moshe Rabbeinu. In Sefer Shmot, when the Jews are collecting golden jewelry from the Egyptians, Moshe Rabbeinu, what is he doing? He's involved in bringing up the bones of Yosef. Because Yosef, he told the Jewish people, when you leave, take my bones with you. So the Jews said, fine. Moshe Rabbeinu was the first one to do it. But he never went to Eretz Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu, as you guys know. Who went to Eretz Yisrael? The Jewish people. They buried the bones of Yosef. They buried Yosef, not Moshe Rabbeinu. Even though he started, they finished the mitzvah. And they get the credit for the mitzvah, not Moshe Rabbeinu. I'll tell you another very profound story with an unbelievable commentary by a rabbi. His name is the Maharsha. And he writes, the tribe of Yehuda. Yehuda is one of the sons of Yaakov. Yehuda, when they wanted to kill Yosef, he says, whoa. He's our brother. We can't spill the blood of our own brother. Let's sell him instead. The Torah, he said he did a mitzvah. He saved Yosef from death. But he didn't finish the mitzvah. You know what would have been finished the mitzvah? Taking Yosef out and bringing him back to Yaakov. He didn't do that. When he decided to sell Yosef, he caused an immeasurable amount of pain to his father Yaakov. One of his punishments is that both his boys died. But they died not just because of that. They died because they were sinners themselves. And the sins they committed were very severe. The Maharsha writes something unbelievable. He says, even though they were sinners and they were deserving of the death penalty themselves, had Yehuda, who started the mitzvah by saving Yosef, had he restored him back and given back to Yaakov, that would have been a protection and layer for his children. They would have died had he finished the mitzvah. This is how we connect to Hashem. We do connect to Hashem through mitzvot. And it's not so much about the quantity of it, it's really the quality of the mitzvah. But if we delay the quality, any mitzvah we delay, anything that doesn't have a little bit of energy, enthusiasm, some passion, now it begins to become stale, it's stagnant, and you just can't wait until davening is over. You can't wait until you get out. You don't feel like doing Birkat Hamazon because you've delayed it. All these little things that we do. To become Avraham Avinu, obviously it's very difficult. But a good starting point, other than Hesed, is doing it right away. I'm saying this to myself more than anybody else. Because it's hard, it's very difficult. But it's such a valuable attribute to acquire. And it's going to bring so many blessings to our life. And you know what's going to happen? You know what Avraham is called? He has a name. Avraham Ahuvi. It's the one I love. This is the title that Avraham gets. You know why? Anytime we're quick to doing the mitzvot and we jump on these opportunities, the Ramchal writes, we create love for Hashem. We actually our real relationship with Hashem grows and we connect to Him because we do it very quickly. When you want to do something quickly, have you seen somebody walk in a very lethargic manner to a vacation, to a plane? Like, I don't really want to go. Everybody's excited, packing their bags, there's energy, everybody's happy. I understand it's not easy, but if you show that level of enthusiasm, you're going to have this strong, you're going to build a strong connection where it's not going to be difficult for you to do things. I'm going to finish with the following. There is a very important concept. How do you really acquire this attribute of zrizut, of being quick to getting things done? So there's a rabbi, he writes a sefer, we don't know what he wrote, it's a book that was written anonymously, Sefer HaChinuch. And basically it's a book where he writes all the mitzvot of the Torah and he tells you the reasons, how to do them, where they're written, so on and so forth. And one of the mitzvot he writes and repeats this concept again, he says the following, Acharei ha'pe'ulot nimshachim ha'levavot. Which means, I remember my mother used to tell me this when I was young, which means the following. Our heart follows our actions, not the other way around. Which means if you want to do something, it's not about your mood and how you feel. You want to be in the mood, do it. It might sound counterintuitive, but once you get into the habit of it, then you're going to become into the mood of doing it. I'll give you an example. If a person goes to the gym, he doesn't feel like going to the gym 1 day, 2 days, then they want to go to the gym, they're in the mood to do it. Or any, for that matter of fact, anything else. So we don't have to be in the mood to do something, we just have to do it. And it's difficult, but just get it done. So, Oli Ishmael, I'm going to go back and say, all he wants is just a genuine relationship with Hashem. We can show that because God understands us by just showing how we quickly want to do something. And God understands our difficulties. God understands our fears and anxieties. And fear and anxiety is something that does prevent us from acting quick. You should know. Ramchal brings that down as well. It does prevent a person. What's going to be? We're worried. There's normal fear, and then there's imaginary fear. Thank you, Hashem, that we have the Torah to give us the clarity and the balance that we need to know between, is this real danger, or is this just imaginary anxiety? The Torah gives such a beautiful balance of knowing what is actually fear that is imaginary and destructive, and what is something that there's a place for it. Now, let me just kind of tap into a little bit of current events. People are scared because of the new mayor. Someone asked me to bring it up. I'll just say this. At the end of the day, Baruch Hashem, obviously there's issues, and we have certain rights to be concerned. But the Torah tells us, Lev menachim b'yad Hashem. When it comes to leaders, their decision is in God's hands. So if we understand we're in God's hands, don't worry about it. Economically, financially, safety. If there's a reason to be concerned, we act. We assess, we evaluate to make a decision. But I'll give you a small analogy so you guys understand what I'm saying. There's a guy who's going on a wagon and he's riding. And then he sees an elderly person on the side of the road. And he tells him, hey, I see you're walking. Holy Jew, I want to do chesed. Can I give you a ride? He tells him, I don't want to bother you. He's like, don't worry about it. Come on the wagon. I want you to come on the wagon. Come on. He tells him, okay, fine. He gets on the wagon. And he sees him standing. And he's holding the bag like this. He has a bag on him. He's holding the bag like this. So the rider looks at him and is like, what are you doing? Why are you holding your bag like that? So he tells him, I feel bad. You're taking me in. I don't want you to carry my bag. The guy's laughing. I'm anyway carrying your bag. Just throw it back. That's us and Hashem. We have a lot of baggage. Just throw it back. Just throw it on Him. Just all we have to do is just throw that on Hashem. That's all we got to do. If I'm referring to, and this is that fear, that anxiety, by the way, that we have, or anything that we struggle with, is the greatest opportunity to connect to Hashem. There's no great, that's the opportunity we want to take advantage of. That's what Ishmael felt. He felt that sense of anxiety. He felt that sense, I'm about to die. And he connected, and God, I hear you. You're abused. I'm cutting you slack. And next week's parasha, you see Ishmael change. He's already older, he did Shuvah. Hagar, she's abusive. She has no place. But these are just some small insights from this week's parasha, just so we can be mitchazek, we can empower ourselves and our loved ones, those around us, validate them, make them feel good with who they are. Everyone needs chizuk, everyone needs a good word. It doesn't cost anything. And it's mitzvah d'oraita ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You're doing a biblical commandment, which the reward for it is immeasurable if it's important, and you just make someone feel good. A good compliment. Nice shoes, nice shirt, whatever it is, you look nice. But it's a good word. For every one word of criticism, you need probably 90 words of now compliments. Be'ezrat Hashem, and Hashem bless all of us with minuchat nefesh, that we should have a lot of real, genuine serenity, tranquility, that we should constantly have the need to grow closer to Hashem. You should answer our tefillot, Be'ezrat Hashem, and everything, all of Am Yisrael, everything that Am Yisrael is doing, and Hashem even talked to us. Look how the hostage came back. Everyone's doing something. These shiurim were going on for 2 years. 2 years. Everyone has a hand in it. Every single time you come, you get into your car, you drive. You get all that credit comes in. That's who we are on Yisrael, Baruch Hashem. We look out for each other. We care for each other. I wish everybody that Hashem should bless everybody with simcha, osher. Whoever should have a zivug, who needs a zivug should have a zivug. Whoever needs parnasah should have parnasah. Whoever should have beilut should have beilut. Whoever needs to have children will have children, Be'ezrat Hashem. Baruch Adonai La'olam, Amen.